Fran Morgan is an innovative fiber artist whose work with chenille has added a whole new dimension to quilting. And Fran, you've got an easy way to put the look and feel of chenille into a quilt. Look at how it warms up this adorable wall hanging. Let's see, you call this Chenille by the Inch? Explain what that is.
Yes, Gina. Chenille by the Inch is a pre-sewn chenille strip. It's 100% cotton. We have 3 layers of fabric that's all sewn on the bias, so it makes a really full, fluffy chenille.
Well, how is it to add this chenille to the lambs I see on this quilt? Is it an easy technique?
It's very simple. Let's show everyone.
Okay, let's do that.
The first thing we do is we transfer our lamb pattern from the book right onto our 5-inch block. After we've transferred the lamb pattern, we fuse the legs of the lamb pattern onto the block and satin stitch the edges. After this has been done, then it's time to prep our chenille so that we can put it on our block. What we need to do is turn the chenille to the back side, and we just give it a little bit of a tug and it separates this backing. And then we need to pull it off from the center to the edges. Now it's important not to pull from this edge because this could pull out these edge stitches and we wouldn't want to do that. So after all this is pulled off, we then want to draw our lamb pattern, our lamb shape, directly onto the chenille. And what I've done here is taken the pattern and traced it onto a plastic quilt template and cut it out. So it makes it very easy for me to transfer the pattern right on top of the chenille. Now I've cut one out here, and also I want you to notice that there's a balance here. There's an equal amount of chenille on this side of the stitch line to the edge and this side of the stitch line to the edge. After we've cut that, we place that right on our drawn pattern on our quilt square. Pin it down, and then we're going to sew along each one of these stitched lines. They're already sewn, so it's a guide and it makes it very simple. Another thing to remember is please make sure you back stitch at the beginning and ends of each row. That way whenever we begin to fluff it up, it doesn't pull up. After you've sewn all of the chenille to your 5-inch blocks, it's time to assemble your quilt like we've done here. We've got it all pieced together. It's very important to piece and quilt your chenille projects before you brush them, because if there's any raw edges, you wouldn't want the seam allowance to come out on your raw edge, and that would happen in your brushing. So let's start brushing this. The first thing that we want to do, as you can see, this is a solid piece. We want to cut these strips as we've done here. We've just taken a pair of scissors and cut right in the center between the stitch lines. Now we've not cut that background square. After we've cut this, then we use our chenille brush. This is the funnest part of chenille.
This is the magic of chenille.
This is the magic. Place your brush flat. Give it some downward pressure. It's going to begin to fray the edges of the little lamb here on our chenille. And then we spritz it with a little bit of bottled water. Now bottled water is important because tap water has chlorine in it and we wouldn't want those colors to run. And that's going to help it fluff up really, really fast. You can see how that's just creating the fluff for the chenille.
It is getting fluffy.
And here's one that's already done. Now there's that perfect last step that we have to do to give our lambs their character.
And let's see, would that be the decorative buttons?
That's the button.
These really do bring these little lambs to life with a cute little button and a bow on them. Well, I can see why you really love this technique, and it looks just as good on this jacket over here that you've made as it does on the lambs. But what I'm wondering is, what about the beautiful quilt behind you? I know you brought that to share with us today. Now, where am I going to see that technique in your quilt?
The chenille is used on the alternate blocks on this quilt, and we have used it with our applique on our flowers, and it just gives a nice dimension to the flower stems and the edges, and I think it's a perfect companion block for those other pieced blocks.
It really is a great technique. Thanks so much for coming and sharing it with us today.
Thank you, Gina.